to try to address that issue, address those requests. The next one is one that was recommended to the chief for county livestock auctions, and I know we've done something similar to this in the past. What we would propose as a policy for this program would be that half of this fund, $7,000, would go to fund $500 per county, just as a direct contribution to their livestock auction. And that the remainder, the $7,000 that remains, be an add-on for Cherokee citizens that get to auction, so to purchase their livestock. So it would just be an add-on to their, if they get that far in the auction.
Yes, Councilor Austin.
I don't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
But
I'm
I
finished.
did have a question on the donations and contributions.
Yes.
So what the administration proposes is $200,000 in donations and contributions on top of what's already in the budget, which is about over $500,000 in donations. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
And the $200,000 would go through the committee, but it would not be allocated by district. There would be no sense of equitable distribution by district other than first come, first serve and those sorts of principles.
Subject to any criteria that the subcommittee would want to impose on that. Essentially, what we would rely on is that if the subcommittee wanted to set up criteria for some sense of fairness about, if we're going to fund one program here, maybe we should look at programs across the nation, because of course that's what the chief routinely tells us to look at, is if we have similar programs elsewhere in the nation, we should treat them all equally, or at least consider that. And so we would rely on both the subcommittee and the chief to make that consideration.
But the subcommittee, suppose the subcommittee says that there needs to be, in fact, an equitable distribution of the $200,000 over the course of the fiscal year, similar to what we do with community assistance, and suppose the chief disagrees and says that that's nothing more than individual council members acting as if it's their own kingdom. I mean, if there's that disagreement, doesn't the committee control? I mean, don't we find, I suppose he could veto it, but we're not going to do some sort of develop some sort of a policy between the branches as to how this is administered. Is that what you envision?
What we're proposing is very similar to the PAC subcommittee, which essentially is that it's consensus between the executive and the legislative about how to manage the fund. And what we would propose is a very similar arrangement here, where there must be consensus between the two branches in order to make those donations and contributions. We think, from our perspective on the executive, that consensus is a very positive thing, especially as it goes to this, and that from donations and contributions, those next 5 items there, essentially what we're attempting to do here, it's not, I don't think that it's a secret at all. What we're trying to do is transition away from my fund, any individual's fund, whether it be the chief or any single member of the council. It is the people's money, it's the nation's money, and we're trying to transition away from an individual concept to the nation making contributions and donations.
I think what it's doing is it's transitioning power away from the executive branch, the legislative branch. You can, with all due respect, you can put whatever label you want on it. You can say, well, we're going from a system where it's individual council members, their money. That label's been slapped on it a million times. It's a tired argument, frankly. The question is, should the council have more control over where the people's money goes, or less control? And it seems to me that this drives it to a little less control of the money, because we're talking about consensus that gives the chief a seat at the table. The seat at the table that he has on the PAC committee is an overwhelming seat. And I'm not saying that I necessarily disagree with how the PAC committee has administered funds or earmarked funds, but it does trouble me that the chief has the biggest chair at the council committee. And that's what this does. I just disagree with this idea that we're trying to move from it's my funds, because I don't see it that way. I think that the question here is, are we going to move power away from the people's branch of government and towards the executive branch of government? That's what I see this issue
we're moving to is consensus, because any budget appropriation does require some consensus between the legislative and the executive. The legislative does not have full authority to appropriate without the agreement of the executive necessarily. So I think what we're trying to do is bring consensus to this as opposed to individualizing it. I think the chief does not want it individualized from his perspective, that it is him giving a check, but it is the nation providing this donation for the benefit of the nation and its citizens. And I think that is the reason for this proposal. So.
I think we've come from two different perspectives, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Councilor Jordan.
I just want to make sure I understand. If it goes through our subcommittee and a majority of this group agrees that the money needs to go to a certain place, then the chief can just stop it if he disagrees for any reason.
From my experience on the PAC subcommittee, I don't know how many times that's occurred as a matter of practice. But both parties would have to reach consensus for it to be. And
he will still have his $500,000 that he can give out in his charitable contribution that we have no say-so over.
Actually, that is a budget you must also approve. So if you disapprove of any one of those items, it could come out at these hearings this week.
But right now, they're already in there for certain items.
They are proposed.
And this total of $389,000 that you propose to move over these 5 items is a reduction in what our community funds was, because last year our community funds divided equally amongst the districts was $425,000.
Right. It was trying to seek a place where the most frequent requests come forward. And if there are frequent requests and there are recurring requests, perhaps we ought to create a program for them. And so that is the interest in setting these programs up and or increasing these programs to make some of that possible, because a lot of those are similar to the requests that came forward in the community system.
Well, for example, Cherokee County on the county livestock auctions, we have over half of the children that go through the livestock auction here are Cherokee. And we have 80 children that can get animals approved for the auction. At last year we gave $5,000, a combination of $5,000 from our community funds, because that's a very important project in Cherokee County. It may not be in other counties. I don't know. I don't know how you all did it last year. But we're talking about $5,000 in one county, and you're only putting $14,000 in this budget.
What I would submit is that if it's a worthwhile endeavor, and we all agree, the executive and the legislative agree that it is, that the amount could be negotiated, that if this committee feels that that amount should be greater and there ought to be, because of the significant amount of kids participating, it should be greater, I think that the chief would be amenable to that.
And on the Cherokee sports teams, at $500, $25,000 will only take care of 50 sports teams. Well, we probably did 50 between the two of us that were 51% Cherokee when we have their blue cards to prove it.
Well, I may have missed some, but I did go through the list and counted them up and how much was donated to each, added it all up.
And that's a growing area, though.
And then we had a few. We had a few apply for the uniforms program, which we sort of piloted out there, but that was only for schools. And so we combined the two of those. I found that it was no more than $10,000. I expected that if we have a program and it's open and everyone knows about it, we'll have more applicants. So that's how the $25,000 came about.
I just don't see how what maybe needs to be emphasized in Cherokee County other counties will think will need the same emphasis. Because I know I think Adair County, probably Sequoia County, maybe Delaware County, and Cherokee County are very heavy emphasis, maybe Mays County also, very heavy emphasis in 4-H and FFA. But as you get further into the metropolitan areas, that emphasis is not near to the degree that it is in the more rural areas. So I guess what I'm hearing is that we see the need, that's a special need probably in maybe 5 counties, but it's not going to be maybe a special need in 9 other counties. And we probably won't be able to get it out of committee. And if we, because I wouldn't, if I were in a metropolitan area, I wouldn't vote to use half this money in one county. But it's very important to the rural counties that it be used that way.
But I think what this lends itself to, even in the donations contributions area, we fund shelters, we fund food pantries, we fund the like, where there may be more citizens served in one particular area than in others. And the way that we deal with that kind of thing is, one, there's not always one of those in each county. There's that situation. There's also the number of citizens served, and typically what we do is, once an amount is identified that you want to contribute to such a thing, is that we try to allocate that among who serves the most Cherokees and where they're served. And usually that's a very defensible way to do such a thing.
And you really think that people are going to vote to give a bigger portion of these funds to the counties that need them the most, when they don't see that in their county, and maybe they can divert these funds to some other activity in their county? You really think that's the way it's going to happen?
What I think is that if everyone believes that livestock auctions, for example, is a worthwhile thing to be doing, then my recommendation is that it become a program and be fairly administered, as opposed to selecting one or the other or some of them and funding them. That be fair and open to all, and that we provide a program for livestock auctions, and that we provide it to all the children that participate. That would be my recommendation.
Well, I respectfully disagree.
Councilor Christian.
Community youth assistance, you said something about putting $50,000 in there. Explain that a little more.
Yes, that one is an increase. That would be the entire budget. The budget as it was proposed in July is $300,000. So that would make the total budget $350,000 for that program.
You all do realize 3 or 4 months ago they started telling people to use out money at $300,000.
Well, I had checked before we did this, and they told me they had sufficient money, so I may be mistaken.
At least two, I'm trying to think back, this is September, going on before July started, they started telling people and kids that already done the work, we don't have the money.
Okay.
They've already done the work, and y'all just want to put 50 more thousand into it. We got kids out there that ain't paid.
I would submit to you that as this discussion goes on, that be open, because the chief has always supported funding that to a sufficient level based on the amount of applications we get. He has always supported increasing that particular program, so I can't see him not supporting increasing if that warrants it. Our difficulty at this point in time, and Callie has mentioned it, is that the dividend had to be decreased. If we provide more funds for virtually anything right now, then it has to be cut from another area, and so that would be the challenge to us if we do need to increase it.
Okay. I'm looking at his government relations here in the chief's office, and there's some charitable contributions, and last year 1.3, not quite 1.4, was spent in charitable contributions, which several of us kind of call his slush fund, because he gets to go out through there and pick who he wants to give them to. Is he giving that up to, or is he keeping that? I'm confused.
Okay, let me clarify first of all, those are itemized because the Constitution says that the council must approve all donations and contributions. So when we submit to you a budget for that 1.3 last year, and now it's a little over $500,000 this year, those are itemized in the budget. So if there's disagreement about any one of those items, then that should be considered at your committee and addressed. So once you approve those donations are then made. So he doesn't have any flexibility with regard to that once that's approved.
Okay, so if we just all get together and go over our list tonight and brought an itemized list of what we want to give to next year, what would be the difference? And why would he still not want to do it that way then? If I brought a list and said, here's what I'm
each
proposing.
year he submits to you the itemized list. I don't know of a year that it hasn't been changed.
Well,
at
that's what I'm
committee.
saying. What if we submit one tonight, get our list prepared tonight, and submit it here just like he does?
I think that's
Unless-
entirely defensible. I think what the unallocated amount is there for is for those unanticipated donations, contributions that we don't know about today, but that come up during the year, and they come to him, they come to you, and that would provide an amount of funds to cover those. So any changes you want to make to the $500 or so thousand itemized list, I believe this committee has made those each year. He's made a request to you. So.
Councilor Baker.
Yeah, I want to report. Todd was holding his hand up. I don't know if he was wanting to get your attention to speak to something before I knew.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Henry.
And this basically a question for Melanie to make sure that I got this right. I'm sitting here comparing and contrasting the proposed the proposal against what we have already in the General Assistance Fund Act, which was passed in 2003. Right now, with the GAF, which was drafted by the administration, individual that we allocate an amount of money just like this to go put into the budget, and then each counselor submits a proposal which goes to the committee, and the entire committee, at E&F, looks at it, can debate it, can pass or fail it. Since 2003, I don't know one request that's failed, but once. Okay, but for the most part, the committee passes that, and then it goes into the budget modification to be passed at full council and signed by the principal chief. Now, Melanie, is the difference here that we budget the same? I mean, we approve the same amount of money, or a amount of money, and it goes, instead of in front of the E&S committee, it goes to a subcommittee. And I take it that I know this council can establish who is on that subcommittee. But the difference here, and this is what I would want to point out, is that it gives the chief an extra amount of authority to individually veto items if he doesn't agree with them. In essence, a line item veto, which he doesn't have under the Constitution that we know, that we've already discussed that. So is that the difference here, or is there something else?
I think that's the major difference, is that there must be consensus between the two branches. Very much like we felt it was important in the way of political donations to say that in order for the nation to make a political donation, it's very important to both branches of government that we're donating to things that both branches support. And because it was important to have that kind of consensus, that's the reason that kind of program was set up for the political contributions. That is what we're recommending for the donations and contributions budget. There must be agreement from both parties so that when the nation makes a donation, both parties are in agreement.
May I?
Okay.
Melanie, don't we have consensus in our present situation? Because the individual counselor brings it to a committee. That committee must have a consensus to put it into mod, to the mod package. The council must then have another consensus at full council, and the chief could always disagree with it and veto it, but and veto the entire budget, which is the whole power of a line item veto versus a non-line item veto form of government. And then again, if the chief has his veto power at the budget stage, but then again, if there's more consensus of 2/3 vote of the council, it goes ahead and comes into effect. I mean, we already have the consensus at the committee stage and the full council stage, and we have the consensus of the chief whether he decides to sign the budget as a whole or veto it.
Right. I mean, I think that's the issue, is that he must veto an entire budget. He must veto an entire budget mod. And if these are important enough for us to be in consensus about, then that is the proposal as to how we set it up from the get-go, is that there has to be agreement on these matters. And in fact, I anticipate that there will be very, very few times that there will be disagreement about these matters. Each time he submitted an itemized list to you or proposed a budget mod to increase the donations budget, I know of very few times that this council has disapproved, and vice versa, when the council has included a new item on there. It's very few times I've seen that the chief has not agreed with making that particular donation. So I think that this process isn't going to be a radical change from what we're doing, and we've had a very high level of success with the PAC subcommittee in doing it that way. So that's the recommendation, and it is a compromise to try to get us past a hurdle on the disputes over general assistance, and make it, nationally centralized, nationally focused. It's a nation making a donation. It's a nation making a contribution. That is a joint effort between the branches, because we want to create goodwill for the entire nation, not just any individuals, including the chief. Thank you, sir.
Councilor Baker.
I do find it somewhat problematic, the county livestock auctions at $14,000. It's important to Don Garvin in Muskogee County, but I don't think Don has over, 5 or 6 Cherokees, Don, that actually show.
Pardon me?
When you have your county livestock auction, it's a big deal, but there's only like 6 Cherokees that actually show in your show.
I think there's 84, I believe.
Cherokees?
Yes,
that
sir.
made the sale?
Yes, not made the sale, made the show.
No, made the sale
I
is
don't
what.
know about 100.
Yeah, I'm thinking you funded 6. But anyway, we have consistently in Cherokee County had 50 that make the sale. And it's not just the community assistance. This goes back 10 years ago when Don Crittenden was on the council, and 10 years ago we were given $3,000 to $5,000 to the county livestock show. Then it went into a system of Cherokee First was giving them a donation every year to the committee, so that these kids got add-on from their nation to the tune of $75, well, the worst I saw was $50 to $100 is what the add-on was for each of these students. And they work hard, and it's not easy to make the show. You really got to put a lot of time in. But it's important in Cherokee County. And if you put 14,000 up there, when we've traditionally been given 5,000, then we're taking almost half of it if we do exactly what we've done for the last 8 or 10 years. Then half of what you're proposing is to Cherokee County. Don's got Cherokees in his. Meredith has Cherokees in hers. I'm convinced that many years those kids didn't get anything. I'm convinced that they didn't, because it was an important event and venture, and Cherokee County was out here promoting the livestock show and those kinds of things. But I'm just saying, if we cut it down to 14 and there's not enough money to go around, if we want to say that we'll put up to 25 and guarantee every Cherokee that makes the sale in any county $100, then I'm fine with it. That if they make the sale, that they have the best heifer, or the best deer, or the best hog, or the best sheep, or whatever, to help them do it, then fine. That will take care of it. But to sit there and put a 14, because it's just like Melanie said, if you have a national program and you say this is available, then all of a sudden counties that have never participated are going to start participating. Well, all that does is bring the premium down to where we'll be given $12.50 a Cherokee. And I think that's wrong. I think that I wish we could do what the Choctaws do for their 4-H kids that make the shows. But I don't think we can. But I'm just saying, this is an area of contention that we funded it 3 different ways over the years, and last year we had to do it out of our community assistance because a policy change over at Cherokee First that says we're not going to do that anymore. And, I thank God that we had the community assistance to be able to step in and go ahead and fund these kids the way they had been funded in the past. So I truly believe that, if we're going to go down this road, that I'm really going to ask that we bump that fund up and give some kind of a guarantee that if we have, flocks of new kids, that we don't rob Peter to pay Paul. And the sports team, I'd like for Gail to go through and look at the number of sports teams, but there again, I know we gave to 20 teams, and I'm not sure, kind of think we gave closer to 50, but we gave to a lot of sports teams. But I'm telling you folks, the Cherokees love their sports. And in Cherokee County at least, and Adair County, and some of these other counties, you can't hardly have a sports team that's not 50% Cherokee. Now that might not be the case in some of the other counties. So I might be, overestimating that 25,000 won't be enough, but that's just 50 teams across the nation at $500 a pop. But if we make it a national program and we advertise it, that way, then they're going to be coming out of the woodwork, and we're going to have more teams. And I just hate to get halfway through the season and say, okay, softball season ate it up, and that, and forget baseball and forget, some of these others. And of course, everybody knows that there's what's the word, World Series all over the United States now. I mean, there's World Series in Atlanta, and there's World Series in Dallas, and there's World Series, all over. But this is a big deal for these kids and their parents, that they're ball players, and they don't care which World Series they get to go to. And it's a learning experience, and it's a motivational experience, and it's it uplifts their self-esteem. And I mean, these are good things that are going on out there. But to cap it at just 25, when I don't think that's enough, but I don't have the facts and figures to tell you that it's not. Adult community assistance, probably fine. That's added on to youth, so you're going to take them up to 250?
350.
Up to 350.
It's currently at 300,000.
No, max the kid can get.
Oh, 250.
It's 250.
Yes.
Which last year, it was 300.
It was,
Year before last, it was 300.
this year's 200.
Right, but year before.
Last year, there were 2 categories, one for over income, one for income eligible. Income eligible was 300, over income was 150. So we averaged, and came out with a 200 and dropped the income requirement. So
Okay, and so now we're going to take it up to
250 with no income requirement.
And but that's still 50 down from what it was 2 years ago.
Well, for
For a
income
poor kid.
eligible kids.
Yeah, for a poor kid. And the donations and contributions, like I say, I mean, at least we have the option on that one to come back and say, hey folks, we've only got $20,000 left, and we're only halfway through the year, and we need to do a budget mod and add 75 to it. I mean, that would be reasonable. But like I say, on the specifics, I mean, the livestock auctions, I'm convinced it's not enough there. I'm really concerned that it's not enough on the sports teams. I'm not totally opposed to trying this format and see if we can be as congenial on this as we are on the political contributions. But I just, there's a couple of these numbers here that I really do not, and what the problem is these sports teams, the parents get around and they don't even know they're going to the World Series and until like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks before, and because they don't know who's going to win the season. And so there is a really tight timeline on there, and to be at the end of the season and out of money, then we don't have time to do a mod to get it back on to do it. So I'm a little concerned because of the short timelines if we keep those down, so low. The donation contributions, we can track it month by month and kind of see how that goes. But anyway, before this is all over, I certainly hope that you all can see it in your heart to, and if they don't come and ask for it all, and we don't spend it, it just goes into carryover, and it'll be in with our $20 million carryover next year. So anyway, I'm done.
Okay. We're not debating the issue yet because there's no motion's been made. And I have 3 people that haven't spoken yet that I have down, and then we'll proceed. Speaker Freddie.
I'll pass because Todd stole my line. The only issue I had was implicitly I see a constitutionality may be at risk because of the line item veto.
Okay.
And I've got to get that clear in my mind.
Okay. Councilor Thornton.
Well, I look at this program as the assistance program that the council had to help our people. And we're talking about $425,000 that we have. It's less than that being cut, and there's different stipulations being put on this funding now. But I see the old saying, people, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This program's been working for 6, 7, 8 years, and our people have enjoyed this program. We've helped thousands of youths with this program. We've helped thousands of adults. We've helped sports teams. And the livestock business is something that I just got into this last year. And we as a team here give, I think it was $5,000 to our FFA and 4-H program. Now this funding didn't go for an auction. This funding went for each Cherokee that showed an animal at the county show. And each one of those Cherokee children had to buy an animal, have to get up in the morning and feed that animal, they have to raise that animal and fix it so that they can show that animal. Now they may not receive a $100 award for that animal, may not be the best blue prize or whatever they show, but it takes time, and it shows that these people have built pride within themselves. If you can watch them, they have a self-confidence when they go to show that animal that they won't have any other time, and it teaches them to come out of their shell, people. And when you go cutting this program back, and I truly think that each one of those Cherokees that showed an animal deserves some little something, whether it was $50, and I think ours came out to $89 or $90 a piece. We had around 100 show. And I can't understand changing a program that's working. And it's just senseless to me, but I guess some other people think it should be changed. And as the livestock auction is concerned, these kids, they go all over the country for that animal. I mean, they not only spend time and money feeding that animal, their parents have to take them somewhere. They have to take them to Muskogee. They go to Muskogee to, I think, a regional show. And they're just different shows around, and they put a lot of time and effort in those animals. And I don't think we need to be cutting. That's just the way I think about it. But as far as the whole program, the assistance program itself, people, if it ain't broke, don't be trying to fix it. Thank you.
Councilor Sutton.
Yeah, I agree with Councilor Baker. You know, the Cherokees, they love their sports. And being a Cherokee from Cherokee County, I had the opportunity to go to Russia one time, play some football over there. And the kind of people of Cherokee County, they contributed. And they got several Cherokees over to all the way to Moscow. You know, we took some train rides and stuff like that. But I think we had some assistance from some well-known sports stars, came down and signed some footballs for us, and we flipped some pancakes. But we figured out a way to get there. But the question I was wanting to ask Ms. Knight is did you say that these were pilot programs? And essentially, are these numbers negotiable? Are they targets, or kind of what? Because I hear a lot about the livestock issue, and I feel the same way. You know, somebody that's going to invest their time in developing skills and working with certain livestock, because that becomes trades for some kids in the future. So, like, you know, I would rather give to the livestock auctions than just, you know, donating money to somebody just because they ask or whatnot. So, but this money here is not set in stone, and there's no hard data to indicate that this is where that money needs to be allocated and anything like that, right?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's accurate. As I said to Councilor Jordan's question, these amounts were developed with sports teams, just what we had done in the past. It's difficult to know in a new program, when you advertise a new program and invite people to apply, how many will apply and how much funding you need. And so I think that the chief would be amenable that if there was justification to increase those amounts, that he would consider that.
Thank you.
Ms. Cager. Continue, please.
Thank you. And as, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, as this discussion has evolved, these are proposed adjustments, and part of these donations and other items that are listed up here are an attempt to reach a consensus on what was formerly the council's general assistance budget, which was not submitted as part of the principal chief's proposed budget. We will be going through every line item, I'm sure, as we get into the meat of this, and as we do each year, changes will be made to the principal chief's proposed budget, and this is an effort to find some middle ground and some consensus so that we can move forward with this.
Councilor Baker.
Oh, you mean this is to do away with the general fund, and this isn't just something extra for the people?
No, general fund?
Huh?
The general fund?
General assistance.
In the budget that was submitted, general assistance is not in there because that was the chief's proposed budget. The last list of proposed changes, we have done some reconciliation on the NAHASDA funding and the IHPs, and we are proposing to add some budgets to the 2010 budget. We have not reconciled all of the IHPs, so there will probably be more changes as we go midway through the year, but some of our more successful programs are mortgage assistance and rental assistance, and as you can see, there's a couple lines there to add some funding to the 2010 budget for those. The land development and land acquisition, those are two programs that are administered by Natural Resources, and that's putting some additional funding into those. The Northern Area Housing Office, that is to provide a couple of staffing to actually provide better intake in some of our our northern, actually to serve the northern area of Cherokee Nation better. Rental assistance management is staffing to help in processing the rental assistance applications. And then transitional housing, that is a program administered by Human Services which helps people who are basically homeless trying to transition them into permanent housing. And then this is the comprehensive budget as it was originally submitted to Tribal Council, showing the sources and uses, and as I mentioned, the tribally funded funding source. We started out with a surplus of $819,000 plus, and that is because of the change in the dividend estimate. We have some work to do to reduce the uses of funds. That concludes my overview. I appreciate your time.
Next, we have Mr. Evans. Unless you would like to take a break first.
A 10-minute break.
Okay, so a 2-minute break. We'll go back 2:30.